hotel that did this massive, super glitzy opening was the Bulgarian Road.
I want to know a little bit more about Morocco.
Okay, all of us should be thinking about our longevity and our quality of life and our health.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Off the Cuff with Regina DiChigo and my fabulous co-host,
Christine Dryden.
We are here taking on another, I think, very exciting topic that people might not talk about enough.
Well, that's because at our age, most people who are normal are married. But
what's that anymore, everybody?
But also, quite honestly, at our age, present company not included.
Right.
Sometimes things are not quite working out, and some of us are starting over again.
Right, exactly. And sometimes when you start over again, you wind up having to take that first trip with a significant other.
And it's daunting. Especially when, like, you know, you've been married for a long time, or maybe you have never been in a relationship, whatever your situation is, doesn't matter. Like, for you and John, what was your first trip away together?
So our first trip away together was actually to Aruba. So it was very funny. I had met John in September, and then this was for Valentine's Day. This was the trip he presented. So just a couple months later, he was going very big, and he had friends that were going to Aruba, and there was this sort of amazing deal, and he was like, oh, I'll wow her with this trip to Aruba, which I was like almost taken aback by, because I was like, oh, here's the card that I got you. I did not get you a trip. But it is that thing that it is daunting, because finding out if you can travel with somebody is huge, especially if you like to travel. So, you know, we did that thing, we flew to Aruba, we got there, and then he kind of took a nap once we landed, but I was sort of like raring to go, but we wound up syncing up, and we started with the day at the beach, and then after a little bit of amount of time, we took the beach nap, and then I was like, oh, I think I want to go for a walk, and he was like, well, I want to go for a walk. And we were like, okay. And we realized that we were sort of like on the same page. And then he wound up renting a car. Like, we rented a Jeep because it was Aruba. And then it's like, oh, let's travel around. And then we were sort of finding restaurants or being like, oh, what's a local place that's not on the strip? And what started to happen was like, oh, we like to travel the same way. So it was basically like a huge discovery in our relationship, which was so good because we all know it could have gone either way.
I mean, you guys did wait a while, though. Like, so September, you started seeing each other.
Right.
Valentine's Day, that's like, 5 months later.
Right, so it was like 5 months later. Right, and it almost could be make or break at that point to see, like, where's this going? Can we do it? And we did it. And we've basically been traveling ever since.
And you guys are so in lockstep together. Like, you guys may not know John, Regina's husband.
Yes.
But, like, you guys were made for each other.
Yes, no, it's very true, yes.
Pace and the things you like to do. Like, it's like you guys share a brain.
No, it is great. And yes, and he's so good about, like, he loves to do the planning, and then I'm always up for the challenge. You know what I mean? When we went to New Orleans, there were all these cocktail places he had, and he almost had a cocktail schedule, which sounds insane. But you can only have a certain number of cocktails, everybody. So if you want to get to a lot of places, you really have to be like, okay, one and done. So it was that thing. But I said to him, we know we want to enjoy. So we were able to, like, split the difference and figure out what we needed to do.
I think you just said something also really key. You split the difference.
Yes.
I mean, you're not on your own when you travel with your significant other for the first time. Like, maybe for the first time, you're actually starting to compromise. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what a very successful relationship is about. Like, you share a very fundamental foundation together of your values, but like when it comes to being able to interact every day, you have to have a strong foundation that will allow you guys to be able to compromise as well.
Right, because all of a sudden it's not your trip, it's our trip.
Yeah.
And even now sometimes we'll go to a place where one of us has been and the other person hasn't. So it's almost okay, I'll defer to you, like, what do you need to do? Here's what I need to do. Here's what I have to do. So we'll try to sort of figure out, because there's only a certain number of days and a certain number of meals. So it sort of becomes like, how do we do this?
Yeah, and like, how important is it to have great meals? Like, I mean, quite frankly, that's important. But
right.
Like, some people, like, some people eat for nourishment. Some people eat for enjoyment.
Right.
I'm an eat for enjoyment kind of person.
Yes.
But I also eat for nourishment. But, you have to, like, be able to align together. It doesn't mean that you're not the same, that you don't compromise or you meet each other and you don't enjoy, actually. Like, I have been pleasantly surprised where there have been some things where I think are so important to me, but then when you're with the right person, they're just less important.
Yes. No, I would say that's true, too. I think that's true, too.
But it's daunting.
Oh, of course.
Like,
no, of course.
Absolutely daunting, I think. Like with a significant other, it's like one thing when you're in your early 20s, like, you know, when I was married the first time, it was like you're in your early 20s, you really have no clue.
Right.
But like now we're like, you know, in our 30s and 40s,
Yes.
and you do have a clue. And you know what you like,
right.
and you want to enjoy, and your time is valuable. And so now when you have two people like that in the relationship, it's like, how do you even, like, one, how do you go about planning something like this? And two, where are good places to travel? Because, you know, I'm kind of like trying to figure out, you know, the whole traveling with someone for the first time. You know, like for me, it's like normally, like, yes, I've traveled with people before, but that's just because, you know, we met in that destination.
Right.
Or, you know, we meet in a destination and it's, you know, it's just different. But like when you have somebody you really like, you're trying to figure out that first time traveling together. Right. Quite frankly, it's daunting, especially when the other person has just as strong of a personality as you do.
Yeah, and it's funny, even what you say, like figuring out everything. Now I come from a place where I'm like, oh, the trip starts at the airport. So like for me, I'm like, it kind of starts at the lounge. So that's where I've changed at this stage in my life, where it's almost like, no, how, like planning the flights is also like phase, like how are we getting there? When does the experience start at the airport? And that John will always laugh because that's what he quotes now. He's like, oh, Regina says the trip starts at the airport. I'm like, well, it does. If I'm in the lounge and I'm starting with a great cocktail, I already feel like I'm on vacation and we haven't even gone anywhere yet.
It's so true. It's like the experience from start to finish.
Yes.
And, you know, quite frankly, I would elevate a billionaire's travel. And so, like, how I like to travel is a little insane because I work in the travel industry.
Right.
And so, like, trying to plan a trip or trying to suggest a trip with somebody like for the first time is a little daunting for me.
Right, because your compromise is almost going to be in a different way.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, wait, maybe we can't do what I do all the time.
I mean, it's definitely... You know, it's daunting. You know, like I met somebody like really wonderful, and who knows by the time this runs if like he and I are going to be talking. Like I hope we're talking. But you know, we met, and our first joke was both of us had Bora Bora on our list.
Okay, because I was going to start to ask you about places.
Yeah.
Because I sort of hijacked the conversation to talk about the flight, but we need to talk about the places that you're thinking about.
I mean, hey, the joke was when I first met this. Special person who I don't know if we're going to be talking by the time this runs. Like I said, you know, you just never know about these things. But I guess we've been talking for like a very long time at this point.
Okay.
But point is that both of us had Bora Bora on our list. And like my thing was, well, I guess I'm your potential +1 for Bora Bora.
Yes.
And so like that would be like the crazy, let's just let all caution to the wind go. But that's not very realistic.
Right. I feel like for everybody, that might not be the first trip.
No. I mean, that's like French Polynesia. It's really long.
Right.
You cross the international date line.
Yes.
When I go to Bora Bora, I have to stay not at any other hotel but the Brando.
So my brother and sister-in-law did that on their honeymoon. They stayed at the Brando. So I love that you're talking about a significant other trip, but that was their honeymoon trip.
So now I have a new respect for your brother.
Oh, yes. No, he also, yes.
The fact that your brother knows what the Brando is.
Right. So now we all do. I'm like, oh, yes, the Brando, yes.
I mean, I think your brother needs to take you and John and the entire family to the Brando.
Yes. I'll be like, did you hear the Mother's Day episode, Joe? I'll say, Mom, you need to take Mom on a trip, and it would be much easier if I was there with John.
And we can all fly together to Bora Bora.
Exactly.
I mean, hey, that is actually my dream trip, is a trip to Bora Bora to stay at the Brando.
I love it.
You know, that is like, you know, my ultimate. But like, that's not a first trip.
Right, no.
You know, so I was actually thinking... And, like, this is all real time. I was thinking that Rome would be a great place.
Okay.
For a first trip.
Yes.
You know, I wanted to always stay at the Six Senses. I normally stay at the Hotel Eden, which is, like, always going to remind me of my family and all the beautiful times I've stayed there. But, you know, with a significant other, I'm thinking, okay, why don't I do something I've not done yet?
Yes.
And so I'm thinking like the Six Senses, which just opened up. It's like one of my favorite wellness hotels around the world. And they typically don't have hotels in major cities. They have them in very remote areas.
Right.
But what they did was they restored a hotel. So it looks very nondescript, beautiful but nondescript, in an old Italian piazza that's pretty close to the Trevi Fountain. And next door, there was an old, like, 14th century church. Okay. And they restored the church, too.
Oh, wow.
Just because I wanted the neighborhood to look nice.
Well, that does listen, if you can do it, let's do it.
And like, why not?
Right,
you know?
why not?
I'm going to build a hotel, and I'm going to restore the 14th century church next door.
Give back.
Exactly. And like you look exactly at that church too, like when you're on the balconies of the hotel, but the hotel looks amazing. And so I was thinking, okay, that would be really cool. And then like why not go see the Coldplay concert?
I like that. It's you bring up another great point too of you're saying like I have all my memories at the Eden, so I'm going to go to a place I've been but stay at a place I haven't been to experience that with this person. And I like that. I think that's a really smart way to do it too.
Because I've been to a lot of places already.
Yes.
And so the places I haven't been to are like Eritrea and Ethiopia, maybe Chad. I mean, who knows? By the time this runs, I probably would have already been to these places. But the point is that like I've been to a lot of places, and so for me, traveling with someone, it's like trying to find something that's new. It's going to be new traveling with someone, but it's also going to be different if I'm not staying in a hotel I always stay at.
Right. So you kind of want to give yourself that too, to be like, no, I also want to get excited about a new place.
Yeah.
Plus this new person.
And also going for something that's going to be fun and different. So like the Coldplay concert.
Right.
So like I'm thinking that like a first trip is you map something out that's going to be new to you, so you're not the know-it-all who's like, oh, I did this, I did this, I did this. It's something you guys can discover together.
Right.
And then secondly, like, you know, guys like music sometimes, so like why not like have it be around a really cool event that's coming up?
No, that's really fun. It's sometimes when we travel we'll look to see what's going on locally, if there's like some sort of like exciting dinner or some event, because that is like a great thing to do too. But I think that's so smart what you're saying. And also I love that you said I don't want to, like, you don't want to be the know-it-all. So it is that sort of thing. It's like, oh, when I come here I do that and then this and then that, and it's like, well, why did you bring me then? For the significant other. So I think it's really smart.
Why
to
not
mix
like
it
create
up.
a shared memory
Yes,
together?
yes.
You know, then also I think the first trip should not be someplace that's hard.
No.
Like, I think that one, it should not be a place that's hard, and two, it should not be a place that's so far.
I think both of those things I do think make a lot of sense.
You know, so like a lot of these places are really like kind of like standard places, like, you know, let's say Paris.
Right.
You know, we've talked about Paris a lot, like going there with your significant other. You know, I think that, you know, one of the other things that we are looking at for our first trip together is the French Open.
Okay, and there you go. That's another, it's almost like Coldplay.
Yeah.
It's like you're going to a destination place, but now you've added this element that doesn't exist all the time, but it's going to happen while you're in Paris. So what a great thing to do together.
Exactly. So like it's also like there's a purpose to go there, but it's also a familiar city. The only thing though is like when you're doing like it around an event like that is that it can get pretty expensive. And so
that's true too. Yes.
And then there's always the like, okay, who's paying?
Right.
Like, I mean, hey, obviously I travel all over the world. I can pay for myself. But like,
but you also want to feel like this is our trip together. So how are we doing this?
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know. So maybe you go for something around a certain event, but also be mindful that if expenses are like something that you want to keep in mind or you want to keep in check, you maybe don't go for the French Open, like I want to go for the French Open, and like have a very, like every hotel is essentially sold out.
Right. Everything's going to be even more expensive because that's going on.
Exactly.
No, and I love that you said not too far, because that also makes sense. Because you really don't know how this trip is going to go. I don't mean in your case, but I mean for other people too, where it's like in every case you're going so far, and then it's like, oh wow, we are two very different travelers, and it will take us 17 hours to get home. Like you definitely, the flight home could be very painful if the trip does not work out the way that it should.
Oh my gosh, and like you just bring the point right now. Like it just has to be an easy, if it's not working out, an easy way home, and maybe not such an expensive way home. So what do you think about like the Caribbean? You guys went to Aruba for your first trip, so I actually think like the Caribbean during the winter, not during the summer. Like no one wants to like be melting.
No, but I think that's a smart idea. And it's like neither of us had ever been there specifically, but it's so familiar. It was so pretty. You get so many sunsets, which is great with a new relationship. It's like, oh, another gorgeous sunset, another champagne toast, but it's kind of exactly what you want. That's exactly what you want.
You know, so I'm even thinking like maybe St. Bart's.
Yes. No, I think that's in the right spirit of things. And these don't need to be super long trips.
Yeah.
Just enough to get the sense of like, oh, we can do this. And once you prove you can do that, then you go to Bora Bora.
I like it.
You want to test the waters and then be like, okay, this is going to be a big one now. Now we're going to the Brando. We've earned it.
That's true. So the point is you go someplace that's easy to get to.
Yes.
The first time. you go to a place where you can create a new experience with each other, that you're not necessarily like the know-it-all in, that you're going to create new memories together.
Yeah, and I think understand that there's going to be some give and take and some compromise, but that's how you learn about each other too, figuring out how each other likes to travel, and then seeing like, oh, I'm a generous partner where I want you to do this thing that you want to do too.
Yeah, and like, who knows? You might end up liking something that you were not exposed to before.
Right, that's very true. I think that's very true. You could, and then you're like, oh my gosh, now I like this person even more.
I like it.
And then we all go to the Brando together.
Yeah. The point is, all roads lead to the Brando.
Yeah, that's right. This episode is not sponsored by. Nobody at the Brando is aware this episode is happening, but we're also coming for you.
But we want to be there.
Yes. No, I love it. But I'm glad we're having this conversation because I think people need to understand where they're apprehensive and having these thoughts. All of that makes sense, and we will talk you through it. Re-listen to this episode when you're planning that first trip with your significant other.
I like it. It's going to help me.
Yes. You have to re-listen to it.
I know.
Or you call me. Oh, I love it. Well, I can't wait to hear what happens, Christine. Oh,
me
what
too.
an episode. What an episode.
I can't wait to hear what happens, too.
Well, tune back in, everybody. This has been Off the Cuff. but stay tuned for more.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Yes. Bye.